All right. So welcome to another prioritization session for 14.5 Create Code Review. You know how all of this goes. How's everyone feeling today? Is everyone feeling excited? Yes? Okay, so drop your emojis in the chat. I want to see how everyone's feeling. Double thumbs up from Andre. Wow, strong.
There we go. What's yours though?
It's
on Windows.
A party emoji.
Oh, I see.
Cheering.
Okay. Nice.
Matt, can your emoji can mean so many things.
Perfect. Just like I wanted it. That's kind of how I feel right now. There's a lot going on.
Okay.
All right, Kai's in a roller coaster. Doesn't it look like you're in a roller coaster?
It says tired, I think is what the text said.
Okay.
I'm gonna go tired. We've had family in all weekend, and then
oh wow,
yeah, lots going on.
Okay, cool.
Intense.
Let's hope that by the end of this, we're all feeling even better. So let me share my screen. So I added these 5 issues. Most of them we have already discussed in the past, so it might be quick for us to go through them. This one keeps coming back. And it came back again, I think, last month or so. I stumbled across, I think, at least 1 or 2 people that were talking about this, users that were mentioning this need, not necessarily this solution, but that they were facing this problem. And we already looked into this in the past and tried to make progress on it to show the lines that were changed in a subsequent commit instead of having to navigate to the new version of the diff. Yeah, I just wanted to know what can we do to make some progress here.
What happened with this, Andre? Because Justin was working on it and then he left. Was it like close to done, or was it like incredibly problematic?
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around where we left off. I think I took some notes at the time. I still think that we had some work to do. So I think there's still some unknowns here. And let me see. Yeah, I think there's still some unknowns here, and both in the backend and front end. Although the backend label has been removed. I don't think we had any progress since we last chatted about this. Okay. Five months ago. The only difference, like, we have some customer activity. Right, so we took some stabs at this. This was far more complex than we expected. I think right now what needs to be done here is just we go at it again. We have some merge requests already starting work, but we didn't merge, if I'm not mistaken. We closed it off. Closed. It was kind of a dead end. Yeah, it's closed, it's not merged. And I think that's where we should pick up from, is like look at the code, get ourselves acquainted with the problem again. And I think at the time, the problem was dealing with all the versioning and making sure that we had the right comparison to show off the lines. But that's always computed on the backend. So yes, this would be requiring some backend support. So yeah, that's all that I can muster at this point.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, I think we're all aware of the reach, impact, and confidence that we have here. Although the confidence on the solution, technically, the technical part of the solution, I assume it's not very high because we encountered a lot of problems while trying to fix this. But yeah, if anyone has questions about this issue, let me know and you can interrupt. Next issue is use viewed state from file header in MR's file browser. So yeah, right now we bold all of the file names in the file browser in merge requests the moment you enter the merge request on page load. And as you go through them and click on them, they turn unbolded and they become, they use the regular font weight. And the idea is to tie that in with the viewed state whenever you click and say that a file was viewed, and unbold that in the same way that you, for example, in an email client, mark an email as read or unread, it would change the email's appearance in their list. So yeah, I think it's not a lot of reach, and I don't think it's a very big impact. I think it's more of a static thing than anything. It helps when viewing a large merge request. I don't think it's a huge impact. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to know if you have any questions or thoughts about this one.
Front end only.
That's great.
Had we when we previously talked about this, I think we talked about blocking it on an API, right? Like, because the next step was to add the GraphQL API to make the viewed state sort of persistent and give us a way to use it in multiple places. I think this is fine. I think the logical question is going to be like, if I click on a file on the file tree, is it going to click the checkbox in the UI? Like, are those two things going to be related in a way that makes sense? And then like, how easy is the two-way JavaScript communication back and forth going to be between those two things to like keep that together? Is sort of my concern with this one. Without the API, I think we're just going to like open ourselves up to trying to catch all these edge cases for a while.
I think the looking at that, so two parts. I think toggling it would always be the checkbox, Peter, correct? So you won't be able to toggle this by selecting. Okay. The second part is whenever we update the code from not relying on the local client-side storage to rely on that, you will be focused on the checkbox. So we don't, at that time, we won't even have to worry about this because that will be looking at that checkbox state. And as long as we update the code that updates that to come from the backend and not from the client-side storage, we just change the store basically. This will automatically work as expected. So I don't think, I do get your point, but I don't think in this case it would be more complex later if we had this now.
The user experience would be if you mark as checked, or if you mark as viewed, we unbold a file. But if you click on a file, which also unbolds a file, we would not click the checkbox.
It doesn't unbolden then. I think that's the update bit, right?
Yes. So bold file names if checkbox is unchecked, unbold if checkbox is checked. So what controls is just the checkbox. So you have to click and select, unselect the checkbox to do something, or else just clicking on the sidebar, it won't change anything.
Okay.
Cool. Next.
All right. This one, I think this one we can kind of skip because it will require backend work. But anyway, this is, I'm passionate about this issue. Well, not sold on the solution itself, but just making some progress here on having less and less auto-collapsed files. So yeah, maybe in the future we'll get to it. This one, I think at some point, yeah, we thought it was just front end. And the idea is that it's not updating the counter of the commits when, for example, you go through the flow of editing a file in a merge request, then you go back to the merge request immediately after you submit changes in the single file editor, for example, and the commits tab has the wrong counter number for the number of commits. It still says 1, for example. In this case, there's only 1 commit in this image. It's not a great example, but it would show 2 commits, the first one, and then the change that you just made, and the counter would stay as 1. And we discussed that, and I think at a certain point, Andre, you pointed to a solution about just using the front end.
I think, there's a race condition here on the back end. Because when you submit the editing, again, this only happens when you're fresh off editing the file of this branch. You come back to the MR directly. The solution I think I probably propose is then to, when rendering the commits list, being given an information about how many commits are there, and then updating the counter there to always keep it in sync. I'm not sure if we have that information available. I think we don't, so we'd have to add that. But I feel like that's one of the cases where we can get by updating the backend ourselves too, if we need to. Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah,
I think, again, like this is a very low severity because the functionality is still there. You can still see the commits, you can still see the changes. It's just that you just push the commit and the counter doesn't increase. So it, doesn't give, it affects users' confidence a little bit. So yeah, small one. And then this one, I think, is what I'm most interested in. And it's the idea of avoiding to reload the entire page when changing the merge request diff. And it helps a little bit with this first one. So let me remind you, like in this case, Nick changed the line of the diff based on Remy's feedback. And today you have to click on this link to go to the specific version where the change was made, and this reloads the whole page, right? It refetches everything. It's a complete refresh of the page. And this issue is to avoid doing that. So you would just go to the diff tab and the diffs update in place instead of reloading the entire page. And this would have the benefit of what we recently did with the tabs. I don't know if any of you have noticed it. We keep the location of where you were before. So if you go to the diff tabs to the changes tab to see, hey, this is what Nick changed, you then go back to the overview tab and you're scrolled down to this thread. So this could help a little bit, but I don't know if it's just front end or if it also requires backend.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I think it's just front end. This one, we can totally do that. The challenge here is this might work well for small MRs where we're just tearing down the work, building up a new app, building up a new state. And then whenever we want to switch, you tear down the app, build again the new state. If you do this a couple of times with like memory usage, might be creeping in some memory leaks in there. So the performance will suffer. Large MRs, we've seen this in the past where tearing down a large MR, a large MR from the state will give browser a hell of a lot of work. So, and then Vue is not particularly performant at tearing down components. So that means that you'll have to wait for everything to be torn down and be updated with the new state. So in terms of time, it's usually more effective to just reload the page because you get a blank slate, you start from scratch. Might be a cop-out, but we can look into it and write a proof of concept to see how bad that would look like. Right. But yeah, I have some questions whether that's in the end will be worthwhile or not, but that's why we proof of concept things. So it's front end on.
Did we try this with we tried like redrawing settings. Only the portion of the page when we were doing the settings drop down, right?
I remember. Yeah, I think so.
But that was just with the data that was already there. We didn't have to fetch anything, I think.
I think we did, because if you change the settings, then the diffs might change. So I think we requested a bunch of things. But
I just mean like, but we tried that with like in the context of the settings drop down in the top right.
Yeah.
Like only if you switch from like side by side to inline, like we tried to, which I guess we don't, we sort of just naturally redo the page. I'm trying to think, like, I thought we had this same sort of thing where like below the tabs, basically we talked about reloading just that section, which is similar to what this is asking, like below the tabs, reload just that section, as opposed to like, if you click the latest, if you click the drop down thing, then we reload almost everything. But the sidebars are so fast, like, I don't know. I wonder like what the perceived performance gain. This feels like perceived performance gain, right, Pedro? That's sort of the goal here.
Yeah, it's two things. So that, and also the fact that you can now go back to the overview tab and you don't lose your place anymore. So which that's why I was saying that it's linked to that issue where we display the changes inline. It would help a little bit with those cases where you have to go to a different version of the diff. I thought that for that drop down on the top right corner of the changes tab, the preferences drop down, for all of the modes, except for white space changes, we would just change how things were drawn by the browser. And with white space changes, we would have to refetch all of the diffs. That was my understanding. And that's why I thought in theory that this could help, because we're refetching the diffs. But yeah, anyway, Andre, you're saying that in theory, from what we know, it won't be a more performant experience especially for large merge requests, but we don't know for sure until we try it. So
correct.
I think you could treat it like the white space ones, because you're right. The white space ones, we only redraw below the tabs. Like we only go refetch and reload below the tabs. So I think the thing would be in the drop down, if you click version, whatever number, we just do below the tabs, which would be the refetch of just that data versus refetching the entire page.
And is so to compare that, well, is the endpoint as performant? So the endpoint for versions for another diff, is it the same endpoint for white space changes?
Should be. Well, it should be the dispatch, and you just pass it the right SHA. You pass it whatever commit SHA you need, and that generates the diffs for that one. So it should be the same thing. I think what you're, and maybe this will like clear this one up. I'm just gonna, because I had to sit here and play with it to understand it. Like if I do white space, only this reloads, and I think that's the ask. Whereas if I change version here, the whole page reloads, even though it's incredibly fast. Like you can see the sidebar loaders and stuff happen. So like the question would be, could for this version drop down, could we just go fetch whatever version
Exactly,
and just change this area?
Yeah.
So make only this request, not the entirety of the page request.
Yeah.
Just what the ask is there. So that seems doable, and the endpoint should be the same for requesting that set of diffs.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, in this case, it might make sense, instead of investing a lot of time and effort here, to, if we were to schedule this, to just do a small proof of concept.
Try it out.
Spaghetti code.
Yeah, because there's a benefit of, recently we shipped, I think, the one about the depth of scrolling between the tabs. So that behavior you're explaining, that you go back to the overview, you will be in the next common thing. I think that will happen. So
yeah,
makes it worthwhile trying it out.
Yeah, I think it would help a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Anyway, this is what I wanted to share. Thank you so much for your time. We don't have to vote, but anyway, does anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about? If not, we can wrap it up.
No, I think we're good from my side.
Okay, cool. This was a very short one. Anyway, I'll place the links in the planning issue. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask, do you think that, so this was a very short prioritization session. It wasn't exactly how we used to do it. And I think 2 milestones ago, we skipped the prioritization session. Do you think it's worth doing a very quick retro, take out the temperature to see if everyone feels like these are productive and we should keep doing them, or is it just a matter of timing that we're hitting into these engineering allocations, and so that's why we haven't been able to draw as much value from them recently?
Yeah, to me, I think it's only because of the backend allocations that it's kind of like stealing the support from meaningful work, because I still see value in them. I wouldn't, maybe we can check on a case by case basis if we need to have the next milestone or not, if you're still stuck in this. But I don't know, what's your thoughts, Kai and Matt?
It's definitely weird timing right now. So I think that's a big part of it. So I think we should revisit it once we have a little more, once backend at least has a little more time to focus on it. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. At that point, we can decide whether or not we want to keep going, but I'd like to at least keep trying it a little bit after when things in theory are back to normal a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, I think from my side, I think these have been valuable when we've been able to bring sort of a wider variety of issues. And I think it's been a struggle. Like last milestone, I think last milestone, we found what we could find, and we actually ended up prioritizing a bunch of that work. And then I think we're going to be, as pointed out in the issue that I linked in Slack earlier, we're going to be struggling to find front-end only work inside of our group, probably for a period of time. And we're going to have to start looking at some of the larger front-end initiatives across GitLab, like Vue 3 migrations and other things that people want to do that haven't gotten prioritized, just because backend is going to be tied up for
wow,
an unknown period of time.
So Kai, on that note, we are looking at the front end level. We are looking at those global. I'm having a discussion with the team right now. Then we'll share it with the other EMs, and we'll make a joint decision, so that we're not like each group picking a very random topic and we're trying to rally around the same ones.
Yeah.
Do you think it's valuable to have you and Pedro and Matt input to those, or should I just take ownership of that and drive it on our side and not waste your time with it? Just tell you what capacity is left.
Yeah, I think feel free to ask. I think you're probably more than capable of understanding what these front-end only efforts are. What I have seen from them, I'd have so many questions to ask you, like what's the most beneficial, that like I think you might be able to answer anyways. And
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have strong opinions about sort of this stuff outside of our group, other than I wish we were able to work on things in our group.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Yeah, I think what we can do is, for the next milestone, when it gets to that point where I usually schedule these sessions, I will ask in the planning issue first if everyone feels like it would be a good use of our time, and if we're in or outside engineering allocation, or if we predict a new engineering allocation for something. But anyway, we can do that pulse check there and proceed from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you everyone for your feedback. Thank you, Andre, Kai, and Matt, for joining. And I'll see you tomorrow, perhaps.
Yep. Yeah. Take care.
Bye-bye.